Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday Eve. We are back. Yes. And I tell y'all what, where in the world did first quarter 2021 go? Y'all, it's April 1st. And this is not an April Fool's joke. It really is April 1st. We are here with another C3 corporate conscious co-op live that we're here every month, and this one is going to be a doozy like the others, but I'm going to introduce our leader, our fearless organizer, connector extraordinaire, Miss Karen Huller. What's going on, ma'am?
How are you, Lawrence?
Yeah, living a dream. Yeah. So what's up? Tell people about this community, and then we got some special guests with us today.
Excellent. So this growing community is for anybody committed to co-creating a more conscious corporate landscape. And the content that we bring you every month in this Answer the Call to Conscious Leadership event is user chosen. We ask you what topics are in demand, you vote, and you let us know. And we have two fabulous fellow members of C3. Dee, you've seen her here before. She is very personal and professional development, career development. And we had a conversation where she was sharing with me just how much desire she has to make sure people understand how to get and gain the education and certifications that are going to help people rise to another level in their careers. And I also have with here Sharon Clinton. Now, Sharon was in a women's event a couple weeks ago that was about the future of work and how women can again elevate themselves, to a higher level. And she is a change agent with the city of Philadelphia. She's the deputy executive director. She has co-authored 2 Amazon best-selling books, and she's an advisory board member of the Future Works Alliance of Philadelphia. So Sharon and Dee, welcome back. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Humble pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, and before, get it started, Karen.
I was just going to say, well, you were going to say something before we get started, it sounded like.
No, I was going to tell them to introduce themselves so we can get into this conversation. And because I got my notepad ready. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to take some notes about how we can really lean into increasing access to opportunity. And so I know these are two great folks to have this conversation with.
Absolutely. Sharon, why don't you go ahead and tell us more about yourself and your background and what brings you to this level of passion in this area?
Yeah. So again, humble pleasure to be invited into a conscious space, right? Of being focused towards access and opportunity. So I probably got into the work of leadership access and bettering quite some time ago. I would say more like 20 years ago. I might be telling my age, and I'm trying not to. But right now we're in such a unique climate and landscape that's happening in the world where there's, an opportunity has been put upon us to kind of stop and rethink the way in which the world is shaped, the way in which we view leadership, the way in which we view ourselves and others. And so I'm excited to be able to share in the opportunity of providing some of the knowledge and some of the pitfalls, which I think people don't talk about. So that folks don't have to fall into the same, holes that we fell into to get to where we are, but to be able to also have an opportunity to share with leaders who truly are committed to the change and understanding that a change is necessary in today's time. And so, yes, a couple of books I've authored, I've from faith-based and also a faith-based film as well. That I do. It's another avenue for me to provide hope and healing, during our time. But I've been in leadership for quite some time. I would say 25 years plus, but certainly dedicated to, I'm not going to say equal. I'm going to say equity and access and seats at the table, and sharing a way that people can do that. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Sharon. You've hit on a bunch of things that I definitely want to dig into a little bit more, including sharing with people the distinctions between equity and equality. But Dee, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first.
Yes, good morning. I really appreciate this opportunity to be with you again. This topic is one that, as you know, I'm very passionate about, and much of it is from having been through the process and figuring out how to access the opportunities out there, and before even being able to access them, first finding out what's out there. Because so often, I mean, we can't access something if we don't know it's there, right? And so often, you know, you might go into a place where somebody says, oh, you should go to school, or you should do this, or you should do that, and you never hear, and you don't even know how to get started, no matter what the topic is, whether it's higher education, whether it's financial, whether it's any other aspect. If you don't know about it, you can't even get started. And then from there, you have to continue to navigate that process, right? There has to be the motivation. There has to be the readiness. So much of what I'm able to talk about now is just based on my own experience, coming from a starting point where I was so far behind and playing catch up for years, decades.
I'm trying to turn off notifications so they don't interfere. Thank you, Dee. And I know that when we had this conversation, I knew this topic would be of interest to you. I'm so glad it was of interest to everybody else, because I think there is you don't know what you don't know. You know, when you were in high school, supposedly you had a guidance counselor to help you understand how to navigate the, you know, loan application process. And there's, I don't know if it's a national organization, but we definitely have a couple local chapters of organizations that go into disadvantaged school districts and help the students there, hook them up with a mentor to help them apply. And then you go to college, hopefully you have somebody who's guiding you through, you know, different career choices. But we know that sometimes that's not even, that's not all available to everybody, right? And it's not, and once you become an adult, it's like, who's there to tell you where you can find these resources, especially if you didn't go to a high school that had a great guidance counselor, or go to a university or a college that had somebody there and making sure you understood what your even career options are, what certifications were important. And certifications are something that evolve over time, and it can be really, really confusing, right? So I'm glad that there's somebody like you out there who is, you know, that's your passion. You want to be there to say, here's what you don't know, you don't even know, and here's the path forward for that. So Sharon, let's go back to the distinction between equity and equality and talk about it for people.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is a little bit of a unique scenario with people. People are super passionate about what it means to them. I think equality speaks to having equal opportunities in some sort of fashion, but the reality is that equalities are not everywhere. You just articulated that. So equality could be, you know, mentors and advocates in school. Well, you can't have equality if those two things don't exist in the school that you are in. So when you talk about equity, it could be that school teaching children or young adults where to get these opportunities. It does not have to be in your own individual space. The way that I came up after my dad died, I had to figure it out kind of on my own as a young person. And so I'm big on tribe. This is something that I sell to everyone. It's just like friendships or relationships or, you know, work relationships and influence. It's about who you surround yourself with. So if you don't have it, where do you go get it? Maybe there's a big sister or a big brother, you know, or organization. Maybe it's a YMCA. Maybe it's another school. Maybe it's asking your friends or other parents, someone that you trust, about where can I find a mentor? Can you be a mentor? Can you be an advocate? If there are opportunities where people or young folks see someone that is either in a line of work that they want to do, or just someone that they look up to, that they feel has a safe space for them to talk through those trials and tribulations, I guarantee you there's somebody close to them that is willing to help walk them through a process or introduce them along the way, because it's not always about what we as adults know. And I think that that's also a part of the issue, is us being very careful not to put our own baggage of experience and lack of exposure onto youth. And I think the millennials, you know, even though they have quite a unique way of addressing things, what I also do believe is that they have a niche. They're some go-getters. They find people to help them get it done. Google, they say, is your friend. I'm a big believer in that. But Google will point you to people who are here and ready to do that kind of work. So that's equity. It's providing an equitable opportunity for the same access that someone else might have in a different way. It doesn't always have to look the same. It just needs to be available. That to me is what equity is. Okay.
Thank you for that. Distinction. I appreciate it. You know, we have to acknowledge that not everybody has the same access to resources and opportunities. I saw a picture that helped describe it. It was 3 people viewing a baseball game, one shorter, one medium, one taller. The tall person can see it perfectly fine, just standing there looking over the fence. Equality would be just same fence, right? Same, their own heights, but these 2 people can't see over the fence to see the game going on. You have to give those people a step stool to help them get above the fence. And Chester County Futures and Philadelphia Futures are the 2 organizations I was trying to think of that are local that match people in disadvantaged school districts with mentors to help them navigate that process. And
let me just say real quick, if you don't mind, Karen, with that imagery, like, you know, I've been in a couple of different symposiums where there's a different variance of that image. And what doesn't get talked about, like, so if I go black and brown here just for a moment, who told you that we wanted a step stool? Who gave you that information? I might not want your step stool. I might have bad knees, a bad back. You're asking me to climb up something. I might be tired. I could have whatever, right? How about we have a better conversation for the person who can see over the fence, just remove the fence. You know that the fence is the barrier, remove the fence. That's equity, because then it doesn't require anything additional to help me see over it. Just take the fence down.
Wow.
What
I love that.
fence even have? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's funny, and what I like about that, Sharon, is what you speak to. And again, this conversation about increasing access to opportunity it's, hey, keep the obstacle in play and create structures for everybody to get up to the person who can actually see already over the fence. Instead of, like you said, the equity is in asking each of these individuals, what's in my way? The fence. Not make it now I have to see through the fence. Now you have making me climb. And so it becomes the person who's feeling like there's not an equitable ground to be had, making us do the additional work. And that's like having people of color lead your conversations within your organization. Like, now we all identify as fences in a way. Now I got to be the one to tell you why the fence is bad, or why the fence is too tall, or why the thing. And I love that and for me, I know Dee here has done a lot of work, particularly around these types of things of what does it take really to understand the meaning of access to opportunity. And like, Dee, you start there, but then Sharon, I know you're gonna come off top rope with a couple of elbows on that one. But what does that mean to you, Dee, to have access to opportunities?
Well, we first have to know where they are right now. Where is the individual? What is their starting point, right? So I talk about where I started from. You know, I was 19 years old with a 6th grade education. But, you know, when we think about the Horatio Alger exercise that many people are doing, that many people are now looking at, I know we all ran through it as a committee in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative that's led by Nilaja Montgomery, of course, who you know, Lawrence. But it's like we have to figure out where everybody's starting point is to figure out where we're going or how far we have to go. So while I may have had a 6th grade education, English was my first language, and it was the first language spoken in my home. So I didn't have to remediate in that area, right? Where is the work that has to be done? Where is the focus, and where are we going to maximize our return on investment? How much investment has to be put in, and where are we going to get the most bang for our buck as we get started? And then, of course, what's our timeline as well? How much time do we have to do it in?
Wow. That last part, right? Because if we're gonna frame it correctly, and we're actually going to have it be meaningful, there has to be some understanding created about how long it's going to take, right? Because in Sharon, in your role, and that's such a leadership role, like, how often have you run into those people that, let's do it, and then you get into the work and they're like, not really. I didn't really mean give people access to stuff. Really, like, in that time part of it, like, how do we help leaders wrap their minds around the investment that it takes to really dig into what it truly means to increase access to opportunities, of programs, of money, of resources? What does that look like to help a leader grow their capacity just to even understand what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, because I work for local government, I mean, the infrastructure piece is it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So let me say this. I think that there is a lot of ideation, right? A lot of ideas. People have, wonderful ideas, but no one checks their ego at the door. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The reality is that I have a set of experiences. Dominique has a set of experiences. You have a set of experiences, and so does Karen. They're all valid, right? There's not a single one that is not valid. However, they could be invalid at this stage of the process. And what happens a lot of times is everyone is dumping in, to the middle. What I'm an OD specialist. I'm an organizational development specialist. And sometimes, it's a win for me. And sometimes, it's a struggle, right? For me being involved in a process, because I can already see if we do this, and this, it's going to crumble in 3 years. So you can do it, but I want people to be challenged about what kind of effort, to Dominique's point, are we actually trying to make here? So capacity, that word capacity, a lot of people kind of link capacity to people, but capacity is people, process, and systems. So the issue right now, the fence is a system. Someone created a fence because it was a great idea to put this fence up. And it probably was 30 years ago. But no one ever checked back in to see if the fence still serves the same purpose for which it was erected. And if we're going to talk about structural, racism, sexism, in the workplace, things of that, gender equity, well, these rules, these policies, these whatever they are, structures were created at some point to address something. Now you have to do what Dominique is saying and readdress, right? Great ideas, but do we really have the capacity today to do all things, or do we start with these 2 things and do them well? Because a lot of people are like, let's throw all of this at the wall. We're going to be known for all these things, and our name is going to be great. And I tend to always play devil's advocate. I want to be like, the movie The Help. Now that we've established that everybody is smart, important, beautiful, whatever, can we actually get to this work now? Like, you're smart, Dominique, Karen. I mean, we are. We have an individual set of experiences. And now I want to acknowledge that your input is equal to my own. You have an equal opportunity at the table to validate your ideas. That's the issue, is that Someone's voice has to be diminished in order to create. And that's where the lack of conscious is for me. Why does that piece have to happen? Consciously, we should be hearing all things and then doing what Dominique is saying, right? Does this make sense today? How do we bucket that? Is this midterm, long term, right? I don't care how many strategy names people come up with. There's been so many models over the course of the year, but the bottom line is it's SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You're never going to get away from it. I don't care what you call it. And when I say that out in the room, sometimes people get offended, but I'm like, okay, you can call it this, but I'm telling you that's going to be a strength or a weakness. You can call it that. It's going to be a threat or it's going to be an opportunity. And so we have to do more conscious realization of, as agencies, as people, about what can we actually tackle today and it stick so that the structure of it lasts long term versus short term, if that's the goal. It could be a short-term goal. So I think that's for me where we have missteps.
You've said so much in that, Sharon, so much that was like wisdom bomb, wisdom bomb, wisdom bomb. And I also want to point out that something that has come up, every single other event has come up now, which is the self-awareness, the conscious need for leaders to know when they're invalidating someone else's experience starts with the self-awareness of being able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in government, like I hear all the time, like, because like right now we're dealing with a change in leadership at its highest level. I've heard so many different things. This person is a clout chaser, or, this person is just trying to be in an individual circle. Well, it's a diminishment of who they are. Instead of saying, let me use this person who has influence in this circle to get these people to help us, instead of it being like a rub against the other leader, it's taking some time out to figure out. I mean, Gallup to me does it best. 100% across the board. There's a number of different, personality tests and all of that, but Gallup does it the best because it takes the idea, it takes into account the person, it also takes into account the way you speak, the way you learn, and the way you operate, and then it level sets. It puts a definitive sentence that says every single person that you have in your organization is valuable, and here's how. And so if you start with the end in mind, that everyone's input is valuable, you'll get somewhere. Other than that, you'll be in a lot of conference calls and Zooms like we often are, having wonderful conversations and no execution. But I digress.
Oh my gosh. It's so deep. Just some of the things, and me and Karen early on in this process of ideating about the C3 community and what types of leaders we want to really be engaging here. What's been the biggest kind of catalyst for you? Like, what has gotten you to this place of saying, you know what, I now know what I need. Okay, what are the next questions you need to ask yourself about going to get something or get connected to something?
I think it's really a matter of acknowledging how far I've come, how far you've come and what you still have to do, and then being willing to pivot, not getting so caught up when a barrier, or maybe it's something I've been going through a lot recently, okay, I decide that this is the next right thing. And then it turns out that there's going to be barriers to being able to pursue that, either that next professional development, that next opportunity, or it doesn't turn out to be what I thought it was. It's a matter of taking it and being willing to pivot, right? And being willing to make a different investment and a different decision. Okay, I got to go back to the drawing table. I've got to do some more research. This thing isn't going to work out. And now what? It's like, I can't just say, okay, this thing didn't work out, and so I'm never going to do anything again, right? No, it can't be that. It's okay, what's next? Or maybe this thing I did didn't have the effect I wanted. Okay, what's next? and just getting up every day and just saying, what is next? What can I do today to make progress? And I do that not only in my professional development, not only in the kind of work that I want to do, but also those opportunities for creating equity and supporting the people who I want to support and standing behind those individuals. What can I do today? Yesterday is done. That's old stuff. What can I do today?
Dee, can you share from your experience some of the barriers and challenges? And I have, when I work with my clients on their career and barriers that may be perceived, it may have just been, as Sharon was saying, your parents kind of dump on you their limited beliefs about what's possible for you, and you buy it. They sell it to you, you buy it, and then you just see these challenges as barriers when there might be a way around there. Can you share with us from your own experience some of those barriers that you had to re-strategize around, just for inspirational sake?
Well, yes, as I shared from the beginning, I grew up on welfare. I had a 6th grade education at age 19. I had the English part covered, but I didn't have any math and science background. So I went into the military on a GED, had ended up having to pursue independent study and academic petitions and Klept and Dante's 52 credits to finish my degree, to fulfill my general elective requirements. Ended up earning my commission that way, being able to finish my degree in time before I had another military move. And but from there, I mean, when I was in my graduate program, same thing, doing my degree at night. For my graduate degree, I was a single mom with an 18-month-old when I was doing that. And so it's everybody's got stuff, right? These opportunities that we're pursuing, they don't happen in a vacuum, right? Life is happening all around us all the time. I saw it a lot with our team members, with our fellow airmen. You had single parents. We had shift work because the mission didn't stop while we were going to school. That's where I developed my coffee habit, was in Alaska when I was on 12-hour mids and going to school during the day. 3 hours of sleep and 3 quad shot lattes, right? But
amen.
But yeah, you adjust, and you do. And I've had the same experiences, with financial investments that I made, different stock and different funds that, I invested in back in 2007. It doesn't work out. You research, you pivot. So often we want to get everything right the first time that we don't start. And that's the key. We allow all of those things that could go wrong to keep us from getting started. And so when I'm talking to anyone, I'm like, just start. There was somebody in the financial group that I'm a part of the other day that said, I just read this book and this guru, this expert says not to buy a house during this stage. So have I been doing everything wrong? And I was like, no. You take the best, you take what works from you, best for you, from all the experts, from all the people saying what to do now, and you craft your own path, and you pursue that path. And then when you approach something in the way, then you either go around it or climb over it, or you do something else. And then we just have to keep going, because otherwise we get stuck. And I've been in that place where you're just stuck and you're just devastated. And then back to our previous conversations about psychological safety, then we're operating in survival mode and we're not able to move forward. At some point, we have to start moving again.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. I think we all have our unique stories, and so even though I've been afforded this opportunity, invited in is really the way that I articulate it. Invited in humbly to serve the city, of Philadelphia. The reality is my story is far from great, far from great. So my father died when I was quite young. So let's just run the gamut. I tended to always be someone who watched the crowd. I looked for the people who were doing it halfway right. And then if I put my half with their half, then maybe I would find some wholeness, right? So it was this idea that I knew that I was broken in some parts. I like rationalization of emotions, feelings, all of these things. I've always known that I needed someone else to hold me accountable. Like I don't do well. I can exercise every day if someone does it with me. But because no one is in this apartment with me during COVID, it's not happening. I'm just being honest. So the other thing is, growing up in high school, I took to my coach. He became a mentor. He became my father figure, and he got me through some of the toughest times that I've ever experienced. So I'm going to tell you that I do not have my degree, and it has not stopped me. It is a personal goal for me to get it, but went to college. Unfortunate circumstances, ended up with a child, so separate. So dealt with like some trauma, like a crime, and then came home, ended up having a child at a very young age. But I've always been like, there's not any one thing that will stop me. Like, I can't stay here. If I stay here, like it really mentally, if I stay here, I'm gonna wither. I've always had that kind of mentality, but I didn't always know what to do with it. And I didn't always know how to do anything, right? So again, I just looked for any one person, to Dominique's part, that could help me on the next step. And then I clung to them. I listened. I was willing to listen and willing to pivot. And then you shouldn't listen to everyone. A part of the issue with our world today also is we're grasping so much that we have like 29,000 things that we're listening to. And so you don't know what to do because it's too much information. So you're not even targeting what you need for your first step, Dominique, right? And so you have all these people's ideas, but you're like, I don't know which one, is for me. Get a house, don't get a house. Get a car, don't get a car. You're going to die today. You might die tomorrow. Like all of this stuff that people tell you without checking in with yourself, understanding where you are emotionally, but also being able to do the work for what you want in the world, but also taking inventory and stopping to do the work on yourself. You know what I mean? 6th grade education, welfare, fairly certain my mom has been on welfare at some point. That's a whole nother show and a whole nother topic about how we grew up, right? But I knew I wanted different. I knew I wanted more. I didn't always know what more was. And I have been very fortunate to have leaders who have been willing to impart their knowledge, which has helped shape different roles that I've had. And along the way, I found my passion for what certain things were. So I didn't start at the same place. I'm not in the same place, and I'm glad of it. I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you all today, but it was hard, and it's okay that it's hard, and it's okay that you don't have all the answers. It just is, and you got to be okay with not being okay. Right? As long as you're on the road to being okay is what my pastor tells me.
Yeah. Go ahead, Karen. You look like you got something going.
Two different things, of course. One thing that struck me was, I think it was something that Adam Grant shared. It was just a Venn diagram of who you should listen to in terms of advice. I should put that in the recap. I know I shared that on my personal Facebook page, but it was a pretty good guidance on, who should you listen to when you're looking for guidance. The other thing is that, a solution has to be both sides working together towards each other, right? Like a bridge. So when it comes to you having the obstacles and the challenges, it's you being able to know what you need in order to move forward. In fact, this community was built for co-creation simply because you will go further when you work together with someone, right? So that's the whole point of this whole community is you have a goal. It's going to make the world a better place. Somebody else has that same goal. Let's put our efforts together and get further faster. But on the other side, so there's the two sides of, how do we find these people? Once we have a system, a process, first you have to find the defeat to find out, is that obstacle still valid, right? Is like the fence had a purpose 30 years ago. Is it still valid now? You have to ask the stakeholders in it, right? You have to find them. How do we find the people that don't know what they don't know, right? And if you are, though, that person, you don't know what you don't know, you have to take your own initiative and seek out someone to help you, some system that is available for you. That has to work two ways together. But then there's also, do we want to promote to underserved, underprivileged communities that they have to obtain this education, this certification, or can we say, this is some experience that you've had that's valid and applicable to help you achieve these goals, and work on the hiring side to help hiring professionals understand that some of these requirements, some of these certifications, some of these degrees, they might be able to mitigate some risk in what they know when it comes to, applying that skill to a job and being effective in that position. But how can we also train hiring professionals to understand the value of experience that doesn't necessarily look like having that degree, having that certification? And if we do that, well, those people, and Sharon and I were on this event where we were talking about women at the top have scars from the battles that they fought to get there. And why aren't women better mentors for each other and helping them get up the ladder? And sometimes it's like, well, I've got my scars. You need to get your own scars too, right? So these people who did overcome these challenges, these barriers, earn their degree, earn their certification, how can we create a culture where we can say, you fought, you got it, your experience is valid, and this experience is also valid. It just seems like such a complex culture shift that has to happen. It looks like so many moving pieces. And I'm thinking about Sharon, looking at all those moving pieces and being like, okay, let's streamline this into a starting point, right?
Yeah, it goes back to what Dominique said, though, Karen. The reality is people just have to be willing to start. And it's always, I think, in the higher up you are, it's trying to figure out as many things at once in a vacuum of where to start instead of just starting. So you identify 3 things, start with those 3 things. So the Future Works Alliance is I think really driving, like it's a force right now. And why I wanted to be a part of it is part of that from a workforce perspective is you can certainly cross-pollinate skill set to certain roles that help move people up into higher paying jobs without a degree or a certification. They're already doing it. They're just doing it in a different way. So it's validating their experience, it's validating their intelligence, and allowing them an opportunity to do something different. No one told you that you have to change your 30, 60, 90-day probationary period, like still have those things, but then also create some structure around what you are willing to invest in training. And, whether that be online training, we're moving away from a lot of in-person, events, but it's also the investment into people, that people are valuable, right? And those same people can come in and help you alter your processes because they know the work, because they're doing it. You're up here, you haven't done this. I haven't done certain things in 25, 30 years. I'm not even saying I want to do it. There's someone else who knows how to do it. My daughter could probably do that in 5 minutes. That would take me 5 hours, right? So let's validate that and say, okay, and bring in the people that you think need to do it. I don't have to have the answer, but I hope that my team does, right? So that to me, I think is the thing, Karen, is just start somewhere. Anywhere, any one of those 3 things that you just identified, move your workforce. So like put a stamp on it, someone at the highest level go, this is valid. We know it's valid, move. Follow along the way, report up, but move. Get it in SHRM. We're all SHRM certified, right? So validate it, get it into colleges. Maybe there's a certain, changing the way that we're doing courses. I know colleges are talking about it, but just validate it and keep it moving. Just go, for goodness sake. That's where I am today. And so I might sound a little snarky because I am. Just pull a freaking trigger. Why don't you? Somebody.
Yeah. Oh God. Go ahead, D. Go ahead, D.
No, I was just agreeing. Yes.
Yeah. What keeps coming up is, of course, anybody who knows me or spend time with me, I'm actions over ideas all day. Let's just try something. And one of the things, particularly going back to something just around just starting, but from an org development culture perspective is, hey, what does it look like to put the posters into practice? What does it look like for us to begin? And then to Dee's point, what does an updated version of that action look like? In today's language? And I think, and to your point, there's these humongous spectrums have been created around, gathering information and then ruminating on the information, and then who is actual empowered to make decisions on these things. It's just like, okay, if you believe it's your opportunity, your responsibility, then let's get in the game. And I think so many people are quick to pull themselves out of the game that you're left with the same 10% of the organization left to make decisions. And they don't have the information because they didn't go collecting it. And so I think there needs to be a collective, collaborative effort. And the reason why we're all here, Karen, is for us to say, you know what? I am that somebody. And that be a muscle that we continue to work, particularly in this area of seeing things as an opportunity. And I'm a huge believer in the power of words and language. And one thing that I had to do for myself early in my career after transitioning out the Army was I had to reframe winning and losing to where I'm either winning or I'm learning how to win. And that kept me in the game of, hey, am I learning from this thing that somebody told me I didn't do right? And I processed that emotion and I said, you know what? I have an opportunity here to get better. And I think for all of us as a community, leaders, and I love Barbara Kellerman in her book that she talked about professionalizing leadership, and just the aspect of leadership from an individual perspective and as a part of somebody running an organization. You need the reps. You need to give yourself the reps of doing, not just ruminating, not just talking about the process. And I think increased access to opportunity is all around, are we thinking about ourselves having the ability to create a space that provides others opportunities to practice and different things like that, versus the good idea fairy in the room that's just like, everybody start throwing spitballs at a wall, and the one that doesn't stick, that's the one we go with. Right? Like, it didn't stick to the wall though, but it fell. So it was the first thing to move. That's what it really feels like to me. The one that hit the floor is the one we go with. And so it's those things. Dee and Sharon, like when y'all think about, because I'm the first next step, right? And I know that looks different for everybody, but both of your experiences, that first next step that you took that kind of propelled you to us having this conversation with you today, what was that first step that you gave yourself permission to take?
I think for me, because I struggle with this, is advocacy. It was giving myself permission to believe that someone else could advocate for me in my absence. Most of my issues were with people. And, like Dominique, growing up I operated from lack, right? I didn't operate from the win side. I operated from what I believed I didn't have. And so there were people all around me attempting to give me more, but I was skeptical because this world can be kind of nasty. So I think one of the things that helped me was a decision that I made to allow people who were genuine and authentic to go before me, and that I was willing to be accountable to one of those persons. I now have 3. I have 2 mentors and an advocate, but that I would concede to them what they told me to do, I would do. And it has helped me tremendously, because otherwise I'm trapped in my own, thoughts. I had to concede that accountability was necessary for me. That's just what worked for me, and I had to do the work.
I love that. I love that. I think for me, it's been giving myself permission to fail and get up and start again. Because I've always been able to push through, right? Where you're just functioning and moving forward. And I haven't had, there's just been a few times where I can think where you just fall down and you just have to move in a different direction, where you really thought you were going to be able to push through, and I didn't in that particular thing. And then it's like being willing to leave that behind, not be married to that thing. I know Sharon was talking about earlier, and all of you were talking about those people that we connect with. We're not moving in and living with those people, right? We can move on from those mistakes. Being
True.
willing to move on from that mistake, from that person, from those situations that weren't right for us, and that maybe that we spent and invested too much time in, and starting over and pivoting and eventually selling those stock, right? Getting rid of those stock, or getting rid of that person or that situation at a loss, quote unquote, at a loss, so that we can drop the dead weight and move forward.
Yeah, and I would even change that. I would say at a gain, because you gain peace. I think you gain, to your point back, you gain your drive, you gain your will to move forward. Failure is success. Without it, no one will be successful. It's changing the definitions of these things in your mind. That's where the work comes from. My grandmother told me a long time ago, everyone cannot go. There's a season, right? Be okay. Your friendships will change, right? Your mentors, your advocates change at the level in which they're supposed to. But traveling cannot stop. If you feel a ceiling, that means there's work to be done, because there's still ceilings to break, right? And then, just have courage to move, forward. Like, don't let anyone or anything change your identity. If a kingdom folds, it never changes the fact that there's a king and a queen. You might not have a kingdom, but your identity is solid. So people, you were born for a purpose. Your purpose in this world does not change until life ends. So there's value in that. You are valuable in something. Pick a thing and go after it, and don't limit yourself. Keep your identity solid. Don't let anyone take that from you. You know what I mean? Like, if anything, that's what I share with the youth and in my own consulting with people. You failed. So what? Your life didn't end. It's kind of like did you die? You didn't? Great. Then there's purpose still left. Get up and move on for tomorrow in some way.
That's great. I mean, I had other questions, but I feel like with 3 minutes left, that's like a mic drop. I don't know what more we need to say. That's just amazing. I love it. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Dee, for spending this time with us in our community. I believe there were people watching, but they didn't engage, which is a shame, but we're going to keep this conversation going in the C3 community. I'm going to share a recap of what we covered today. And love that people will come and watch the replay and hopefully engage with this. Connect with you, connect with Dee. Sharon, where do you want people to reach out to you should they want to connect?
They can certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn at Sharon Robinson Clinton. Social media is I am Sharon Speaks on all social media. And also for email is I am Sharon Speaks at yahoo.com. So, yep.
Great. Thank you. And Dee, should they want your help figuring out where they're at and what they need, how do they reach you?
Definitely through LinkedIn. And then also, if they want to reach out via email, it's isabelle.dominique.ross@gmail.com. And so, if anybody needs to know about free resources to pursue things, whether it's certification or education or how to navigate policies and procedures and processes and figure things out, I love going down rabbit holes of research for that kind of stuff. I love it. I can talk about that all day. So
excellent. Thank you. Thank you both for sparing your time and sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Sharing your
We'll come back anytime. This is a wonderful group. I'm happy that you guys are doing something like this. We need more of you in this world. So thank you.
Thank you. Invite folks to C3. You have people.
I will.
I'm sure you know people with the common goal of transforming a more conscious corporate landscape, and that's what we're up to. So they're all welcome in the C3 community, and I hope people reach out and co-create together. Lawrence.
Yes. No, I have nothing. Thank y'all so much. and D knows that's rare. Karen, y'all know that's rare. I got nothing. So thank y'all so much because you're right, Sharon. We need to connect. We need to co-collaborate because it's us supporting us. And I'm just grateful for the C3 community. And Karen, so grateful for you to have met in the middle of a pandemic. So thank y'all so much. And those out there, if you're in our community and you're seeking to be a part of this panel, continue to look out for the surveys. What topics do you all want to talk about so that we can share this platform with you because this live is your live. And we want to co-create with you and give everyone access to you as the gift that you are. So thank y'all so much. And until next time, see y'all next month.
Thank you.